Hi, I'm Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guide. Also today, I'm at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California.
The California State Railroad Museum is located on 111 I Street in Sacramento, California, and is open if you check the web for information about that. In 1937, a group of train buffs formed the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society Pacific Coast Chapter. The organization worked for years to promote the idea of a railroad museum, donating 30 historic locomotives and cars to the California Department of Parks and Recreation to be the nucleus of a state-owned and operated museum in Sacramento. The museum opened in 1976. The new History Museum building upon its opening in 1981, and the first train ride excursions began in 1984. In 1992, Railtown 1897 Historic Park in Jamestown, California was added to the museum complex. The train rides operate between the Central Pacific Freight and Passenger Depot, built in the 1870s, and the Sacramento Southern Railroad is operated by the museum. It also takes passengers on a 40-minute, 6-mile round trip along the Sacramento River on a portion of the Walnut Grove branch of the former Southern Pacific Railroad. The Sacramento Southern Railroad owns the Walnut Grove branch right-of-way that extends south from Sacramento along the eastern bank of the Sacramento River. A few miles of track were rebuilt along the levee near Freeport, California, as part of a United States Army Corps of Engineers project. Also, during the ride, you'll even pass the state capitol building as well. In 2017, the museum became a Smithsonian affiliate. In October 2020, the interior of the main building was being remodeled, and the project took at least 6 months, and it finally reopened to the public. The location of the museum is known to be the starting point of the Central Pacific Railroad when constructing the first transcontinental railroad and having to meet up with the Union Pacific Railroad in Promontory, Utah on May 10, 1869. The Central Pacific Railroad began in 1861 till it merged into the Southern Pacific in 1885, and most of the portions of the Southern Pacific were taken over by the Union Pacific Railroad in 1996. Inside the building, you'll even see a huge collection of model trains from old to new on display on the floor on the very top of the building as well. Today, the California State Railroad Museum continues to educate people history on the railroad and train cars and locomotives as well.
What you see right behind me is Southern Pacific 290.
Southern Pacific 290 was built by the Budd Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1950 and is a diner car. Also, the car is named Audubon. This car was originally numbered 10214. For many years, this car was used on the Southern Pacific Sunset Limited. It was originally seen in a Budd silver scheme with the red pinstripe above the windows. Also, the car was a diner car where people would eat on board this car when riding the train as well. In 1974, it was renumbered 290. In 1989, it was repainted in a daylight paint scheme. Then it was retired, and in 1998, it was acquired by the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is seen today, and sometimes it can be seen rolling on the Sacramento Southern Railroad as well.
What you see right behind me is Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 5021.
Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 5021 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1944 and is the 708 27th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 210-4 Texas type steam locomotive and is a 5011 class steam locomotive. This locomotive is the 21st of 25 Texas-type steam locomotives built for the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad, numbered from 5011 to 5035. Also, it was used for the fast freight service when being used on the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad. Although capable of handling passenger assignments, the 5011 classes were basically freight locomotives throughout their careers. Then later on, the locomotive was retired in 1959 and stored in Bella, New Mexico. Then in 1986, it was donated to the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is seen today. Also, like probably sometime before 2013, the locomotive was spray painted with graffiti nearly all round, and then in 2016, the graffiti got cleaned off and the locomotive and tender got repainted. Also, Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 5021 is one of 5 surviving Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 210-4s left in the world today, and 5021 can be found here at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is preserved today.
What you see right behind me is Amtrak 281.
Amtrak 281 was built by Electromotive Division in LaGrange, Illinois in 1978 and is the 777-063-2nd diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an F40 PHR type diesel locomotive. This locomotive was built to pull passenger trains for many years. After its career ended on Amtrak, it was soon leased out to freight service. Then in 2001, it was then retired from Amtrak service and was then acquired by the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California. In 2005, the locomotive, along with another in the collection, which was Southern Pacific 6051, made a trip from Sacramento to San Francisco where they picked up Southern Pacific Steam Locomotive 2467 and brought it to the California State Railroad Museum for display. Then in 2020, the locomotive was completely restored to operation and started operating on the Sacramento Southern Excursion Train. Today, it is part of the collection of the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it can be seen today.
What you see right behind me is Missouri, Kansas, Texas 642.
Missouri, Kansas, Texas 642 was built by American Car and Foundry in St. Charles, Missouri in 1923 and is a passenger coach. For many years, this car has seen service on the Missouri, Kansas, Texas Railroad and carried people on board as well. Then it was retired and it was then owned by the White Mountain Central Railroad in New Hampshire. Later on, it was acquired by the Stewart Family Trust. In 2002, the car was donated to the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California by the Stewart Family Trust. Also, it is sometimes seen rolling with the passenger train as well.
What you see right behind me is Sacramento Southern 6102.
Sacramento Southern 6102R was built by the Mount Vernon Car Manufacturing Company in Mount Vernon, Illinois in 1917 and is a gondola car. Originally, this car was built for the Western Pacific Railroad and was originally built as a boxcar, and its original numbers unknown. Then it was rebuilt as a gondola car. Also, this car was used for many years to haul boxcar cargo, then gondola car cargo. Then it was retired and was acquired by the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is today, and is used as an open-air car for passengers when it rolls on the Sacramento Southern Railroad with the passenger train as well.
What you see right behind me is Sacramento Southern 6108.
Sacramento Southern 6108R was built by the Mount Vernon Car Manufacturing Company in Mount Vernon, Illinois in 1917 and is a gondola car. Originally, this car was built as a boxcar and was built new for the Western Pacific Railroad, and its original numbers unknown. It was then rebuilt as a gondola car. Also, the car was used for many years to haul boxcar cargo and then gondola car cargo. Then it was retired and was acquired by the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is today, and is used as an open-air car for passengers when it rolls on the Sacramento Southern Railroad with the passenger train as well.
What you see right behind me is Southern Pacific 2902.
Southern Pacific 2902 was built by Pullman in 1924 and is a club lounge observation coach. Also, the car is named El Dorado. Originally, the car was built for the Union Pacific Railroad and originally numbered 1536. The car was wrecked in Cortana, California. It was sold to the Southern Pacific Railroad in 1929 and was repaired in Sacramento, California by the shops and was renumbered 2902. It saw service on the back end of passenger trains for a number of years. Then it was retired in 1956 and was sold to the Pacific Coast Chapter Railway and Locomotive Historical Society in 1957. It was lettered Union Pacific and numbered 1536 and given the name it had on Union Pacific by the chapter.
What you see right behind me is Southern Pacific 2175.
Southern Pacific 2175 was built by Pullman in 1921 and is a passenger coach. The car was originally built for the Galveston, Harrisburg, and San Antonio Railroad and originally numbered 837. Then, when the Galveston, Harrisburg, and San Antonio became the Texas and New Orleans Railroad, the car retained its number. Then, when the Texas and New Orleans merged with the Southern Pacific, it was renumbered 2175. For many years, this car had people ride on board it as well. Then later on, it was retired in 1978 and was acquired by the Pacific Coast chapter and then became part of the collection of the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is seen today. Also, it is sometimes seen rolling on the Sacramento Southern Railroad as well.
What you see right behind me is Western Pacific 913.
Western Pacific 913 was built by Electromotive Division in LaGrange, Illinois in 1950 and is the 8976 diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an F7A type diesel locomotive. Originally, it was numbered 920A. For many years, this locomotive hauled Western Pacific passenger trains between Salt Lake City, Utah and Oakland, California. The engine was painted in some different paint schemes over the years. In 1971, it was renumbered 913A and was the second one numbered 913A. Then in 1975, it was renumbered 913 but without the letter A. Then it was retired, and in 1981, it was donated to the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is preserved today. Also, it is sometimes seen operating on the Sacramento Southern Railroad as well.
What you see right behind me is Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 2925.
Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 2925 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1944 and is the 698 13th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 484 Northern type steam locomotive and is a 2900 class steam locomotive. This locomotive was basically like a passenger steam locomotive and would also be used on the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad in the past. Also, I believe it was also a steam locomotive that once hauled freight as well. After the war, some 2900s were assigned to passenger service between Kansas City, Kansas, and Los Angeles, California. Even this locomotive stayed in freight service. Then the locomotive was then retired and was stored in a shed in Cleburne, Texas. There was big excitement in Texas when it was heard that the railroad was going to do their own steam program and moved the locomotive to the large shops in Cleburne, Texas for an evaluation. There it was going to be restored, or they just decided against running their own steam and the plan was dropped. The locomotive remained in Cleburne, Texas till the 1980s before going to Belen, New Mexico, where it was stored. Then, in 1986, it was donated to the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is seen today. Also, like probably sometime before 2013, the locomotive was spray painted with graffiti nearly all around, and then in 2016, the graffiti got cleaned off the locomotive and tender and got repainted. Also, Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 2925 is also one of 9 surviving Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 484 Northerns that survive today as well. And 2925 can be found here at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is preserved today.
What you see right behind me is Southern Pacific 47704.
Southern Pacific 47704 was built by General American Car Company in 1942 and is a tanker car. This car was used for many years and was used on freight trains to haul many different types of liquids it may have hauled many years ago. It was even used on mixed freight trains years ago, or may have been used on a line of tankers just like it. It was then renumbered 60168 later on. Then later on, it was retired and it was donated to the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California by the Southern Pacific Railroad, where it is seen today.
What you see right behind me is
United States Army
2030.
United States Army 2030 was built by Electromotive Division in LaGrange, Illinois in 1951 and is the 15,025th diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an SW8 type diesel locomotive. This engine spent its life working for the United States Army Railway It was based at the Hawthorne Ammunition Depot in Nevada. For many years, it was used for switching cars around as well. Then later on, the locomotive was retired, and in 1995, it was bought by the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, and was relettered Sacramento Southern and was repainted into its present livery. Also, it is sometimes seen rolling on the Sacramento Southern and seen pulling the trains as well.
What you see right behind me is Sacramento Northern 402.
Sacramento Northern 402 was built by Electromotive Division in LaGrange, Illinois in 1939 and is the 988th diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an SW1 type diesel locomotive. This locomotive was originally built for the Western Pacific Railroad and originally numbered 502. It was meant to switch cars in the yards for many years. In 1965, it was sold to the Sacramento Northern Railroad and was renumbered 402. Then, in 1938, it was retired and was donated to the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is preserved today.
What you see right behind me is Union Pacific 25256.
Union Pacific 25256 was built by the Union Pacific Railroad Shops in Omaha, Nebraska in 1952 and is a CA5 class steel caboose. Originally, it was numbered 3956, and for many years it was used by the Union Pacific Railroad on the back end of freight trains. Then, in 1959, it was renumbered 25256. Then, in 1983, it was retired and was donated to the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is preserved today. What you see right behind me is Nevada Short Line 1. Nevada Short Line 1 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1879 and is the 4562nd steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 260 Mogul type steam locomotive. This locomotive was built for the Utah Northern Railway and was originally numbered 13. It was built to run on narrow gauge tracks. Then, when the Utah and Northern consolidated to the Oregon Short Line and Utah Northern in 1889, it was renumbered 17 and used by that railroad. Then, in 1899, it was sold to the Glasgow and Western Exploration Company and worked the Golconda and Adelaide Railroad and was named Pearl. In 1913, it was then sold to Sugarman Iron and Metal Company, which took over the Golconda and Adelaide Railroad. Then, in 1914, it was sold to the Nevada Short Line Railway, which was located in Rochester, Nevada, and numbered 1. It was sold for scrap in 1920. It was then saved from being cut up. In 1924, it was sold to the Nevada Central Railroad and was renumbered 6 and was located in Battle Mountain, Nevada. In 1938, the Nevada Central was abandoned and the locomotive was sold to J.M. Hiskey, who was the railroad's general manager. It was also steamed up at the 1939-1940 Golden Gate International Exposition in San Francisco, California, where it was masqueraded as Union Pacific 119. and was used for the reenactment of the 1869 Golden Spike ceremony. Then, in 1941, it was donated to the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society in Oakland, California. Then, it went into storage in San Francisco, Bay Area. Then, in 1969, it was donated to the state of California and put on display at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is seen right here on display where it is today. Also, it is the only surviving steam engine from the Nevada Short Line Railroad and one of 3 surviving steam engines that served the Oregon Short Line and Utah Northern Railroad, and one of 2 surviving Nevada Central 260s, and 2 is the other one, and is located at the Southern California Railway Museum in Pierce, California. And number 1 can be found here at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is today. And also, if you're looking for this locomotive, it is on the top floor of the museum building. What you see right behind me, Southern Pacific 331. Southern Pacific 331 was possibly built by Carter Brothers in San Francisco, California, probably in 1891, and is a boxcar. This car was built to run on narrow gauge tracks. It was used on the narrow gauge Southern Pacific Railroad and was used to carry boxcar freight and would later carry bulk soda ash. It was later renumbered 46. Then, in 1960, it was retired and was later acquired by the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it can be seen today. Also, the car can be found on the top floor inside the museum building as well. What you see right behind me, Southern Pacific 145. Southern Pacific 145 was built by the Central Pacific Railroad Shops in Sacramento, California in 1892 and is a tanker car. This car was built to run on narrow gauge tracks. It was used on the narrow gauge Southern Pacific Railroad portions and was used to carry oil inside the tank. Then in 1960, it was retired and was later acquired by the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it can be seen today. Also, the car can be found on the top floor inside the museum building as well. What you see right behind me is Pacific Coast 2. Pacific Coast 2 was built by the Nevada, California, Oregon Railroad Shops in Reno, Nevada in 1910 and is a wooden caboose. It was originally built for the Nevada, California, Oregon Railroad, and this is the original number to this car. It features side doors on the side. In 1928, the car was sold to the Pacific Coast Railroad in San Luis Obispo, California, and it kept the number. Later, it was retired and was bought by Ward Kimball, who had it on his railroad in his backyard in San Gabriel, California, known as the Grizzly Flats Railroad. Then, in 1979, it was bought by the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, and it was completely restored and seen on display in this spot in the museum on the top floor where it is seen today.
What you see right behind me is Canadian National 1683.
Canadian National 1683 was built by Canadian Car and Foundry in Kingston, Ontario, 1929, and is a sleeper car. Also, the car is named St. Hyacinth. For many years, car was used by the Canadian National Railroad and was used on passenger trains, and people would even spend the night on board it as well. In 1971, it was retired and was purchased by the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society Pacific Coast chapter. Then in 1980, it was presented to the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is preserved today. And also you can even visit the interior of the car as well.
What you see right behind me is Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 1474.
Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 1474 was built by the Budd Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1937 and is a dining car. Also, the coach is named Cochiti. This car was used on board the Super Chief passenger train on the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad for many years, and also people even would eat at tables inside this car when riding the train. Then it was retired and was part of the diner at Bucksnort Junction in Tea, South Dakota. Later, it was put for sale when the diner closed. Then it was bought by the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, and it was soon moved to the museum and was carefully restored on the interior and exterior. Today it is preserved at the California State Railroad Museum and seen on display in this spot where it is today. Also, you can even visit the interior of the car as well. Inside the dining area, you'll see a big collection of railroad dining car china inside, and each case is labeled which railroad each set came from as well.
What you see right behind me is Great Northern 42.
Great Northern 42 was built by American Car and Foundry in St. Charles, Missouri in 1951 and is a railway post office car. This car was used by the Great Northern Empire Builder passenger train. For several years, it was used on passenger trains and the mail would be picked up and dropped off without the train stopping, and people would even sort mail inside this car as well. Then in 1970, the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy, Northern Pacific, Great Northern, and Spokane, Portland, and Seattle railroads merged to form the Burlington Northern Railroad, and the number planned for this car for Burlington Northern was 603 but wasn't applied. Then in 1971, it was stored away. Then later on, it was acquired by the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California. In 1980, it was carefully restored. It was soon moved inside the museum building. Today, it is preserved here at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is today. And also, you can even visit the interior of the car as well.
What you see right behind me is Southern Pacific One.
Southern Pacific One was built by Danforth Cook and Company in Paterson, New Jersey in 1863 and is the 277th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 424 type steam locomotive. Also, the locomotive is named C.P. Huntington. Originally, the locomotive was built for the Central Pacific Railroad and was originally numbered 3. The locomotive has always had the name, which stands for Collis Potter Huntington, who invested in Theodore Judah's idea of building the Central Pacific Railroad. This locomotive was used to help build the Transcontinental Railroad and hauled passenger trains. In 1871, the locomotive was transferred to the Southern Pacific Railroad and was numbered 1 and kept the name. The locomotive operated as a light construction engine between San Jose and Hollister, California, and was used as a weed burner and clearing tracks. In 1894, the locomotive became a symbol of the Southern Pacific, appearing at station openings and exhibitions including the 1915 San Francisco-Panama Pacific Exposition, the 1934 Chicago World's Fair, and the 1969 Golden Spike Centennial Celebration in Sacramento.
What you see right behind me is Virginia Truckee 13.
Virginia Truckee 13 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1873 and is the 3091st steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 260 mogul type steam locomotive. Also, the locomotive is named Empire. The factory that built the locomotive was originally known as M. Baird and Company around that time it was built. The locomotive was used in freight service on the line for many years. In 1910, it was converted from burning wood to oil and was renumbered 15. In 1918, it was retired, and in 1924, it was sold to the Pacific Portland Cement Company in Gerlach, Nevada, and was renumbered 51. The locomotive worked as a switcher for the plant. In 1931, it was retired once again. Then, in 1938, it was donated to the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society Pacific Coast Chapter. Then, in 1976, it was moved to the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, and a complete restoration based on period photographs and original drawings. The locomotive was restored carefully to how it looked when it was built. Today, it is on display in this spot at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is today. Also, Virginia Truckee 13 is one of 3 Virginia Truckee 260s still around, but there are only 2 original 260s that served the Virginia Truckee Railroad that remain today. And number 20, named the Tahoe, is located at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania in Strasburg, Pennsylvania. And number 13 can be found here on display at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is today.
What you see right behind me, Southern Pacific 4294.
Southern Pacific 4294 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1944 and is the 70101st steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 4882 cab forward type steam locomotive and is an AC 12 class steam locomotive. This locomotive is known to be a cab-forward kind of steam locomotive because if you compare it to an ordinary-looking steam engine, you could tell that the front end of the locomotive is coupled onto the tender and the cab leads first. This was the last steam locomotive built for the Southern Pacific Railroad. It is one of 20 AC-12 cab-forwards built. It was used for hauling freight and passenger trains into Oregon and California, including the Overland Limited over Donner Pass. The cab forward was developed by Southern Pacific to deal with the railroad's 39 tunnels and nearly 40 miles of snow sheds in the Sierra Nevada mountains, which could funnel exhaust fumes back into the cab of conventional locomotives. After a number of crews nearly suffered asphyxiation, the Southern Pacific experimented by running locomotives in reverse, but this meant the tender blocked the crew's view and put them on the wrong sides of the cab to see signals. The railroad commissioned the Baldwin Locomotive Works to build a cab forward, and the first ones were built in 1910. The factory built 250 cab forwards for the railroad between 1910 and 1944, and singular look soon became a symbol of the company. Then it was retired from service, and in 1958 it was donated to the city of Sacramento, California, and it soon joined the collection of the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is on display today. Also, Southern Pacific 4294 is the only surviving cab forward left in the world today and can be found on display at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is on display today. And you can even visit the locomotive's cab and even sit where the engineer and fireman used to sit as well.
What you see right behind me is Fruit Growers Express 35832.
Fruit Growers Express 35832 was built by Fruit Growers Express Company in Alexandria, Virginia in 1924 and is a wooden refrigerator car. This car was once used on the Fruit Growers Express train many years ago, and it appears it was used on a line of refrigerator cars like it, and it would also carry what refrigerator cars would carry, like fruit on board or whatever else it might have hauled in the past as well. Then later on, the car was retired and was then acquired by the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is preserved today. And also, you can even visit the interior of the car as well. What you see right behind me is Georgia Northern 100. Georgia Northern 100 was built by the Central Georgia Railway Shops in Savannah, Georgia in 1905 and is a business car. Also, the car is named Gold Coast. Originally, it was built for the Central Georgia Railroad and originally numbered 97. Then it was sold to the Georgia Northern Railroad and was renumbered 100. For many years, executives of the railroads rode in this car. In 1948, the car was sold to Lucius Beebe and Charles Clegg, who were famed railroad historians, and renamed it the Gold Coast. In 1954, the car was presented to the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society's Pacific Coast chapter by Charles and Lucius. In 1969, it was donated to the California State Railroad Museum by the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society's Pacific Coast chapter. Today, it is preserved at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it can be seen today.
What you see right behind me is North Pacific Coast 12.
North Pacific Coast 12 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1876 and is the 3843rd steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 440 American type steam locomotive. Also, the locomotive is named Sonoma. This locomotive was built to run on narrow gauge tracks. It was believed to have been both a freight and passenger locomotive that ran between Sausalito and Duncan Mills, California on the North Pacific Coast Railroad. In 1979, it was sold to the Nevada Central Railway and was renumbered 5 and was renamed General L.H. Ledlie. It was named after the civil engineer then working for the railroad who helped build the Transcontinental Railroad, and he worked for the Union Pacific. In 1880, it was renamed Jos Colette. In 1888, it was sold to the Nevada Central Railroad and kept its number. For that railroad, it was used as a switcher and road locomotive for the railroad. In 1938, the Nevada Central was abandoned and the locomotive was sold to J.M. Hiskey, who was the railroad's general manager. He loaned it to the 1939-1940 Golden Gate International Exposition in San Francisco, California, where it was steamed up and massacred as Central Pacific 60, named Jupiter, and was used for the reenactment of the 1869 Golden Spike Exposition in San Francisco, California, where it was steamed up and was used for the reenactment of the 1869 Golden Spike ceremony. Then in 1941, it was donated to the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society in Oakland, California. Then it was placed into storage in the San Francisco Bay Area. Then in 1969, it was donated to the state of California and was put on display at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is seen right here on display today.
What you see right behind me is Nevada Central 3.
Nevada Central Railway 3 was built by the Nevada Central Railroad Shops in Battle Mountain, Nevada in 1881 and is a passenger coach. Also, the car is named Silver State. This is the only passenger car the Nevada Central has ever built. It was used for many years on the Nevada Central Railroad on passenger trains. It saw a little bit of service as the Nevada Central ceased operations in 1938 and rarely operated after the turn of the century. In 1939 to 1940, it was used at the San Francisco's Golden Spike ceremony reenactments at the Golden Spike International Exposition. It was then stored in San Francisco, California. Then, in 1969, it was donated to the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society and was then put on display at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is seen today.
What you see right behind me is Monterey and Salinas Valley 1.
Monterey and Salinas Valley 1 was built by Carter Brothers in San Francisco, California in 1874 and is a combine car. For many years, this car has seen service on passenger trains. In 1879, it was then sold to the Nevada Central Railroad and retained its number. Then the Nevada Central ceased operations in 1938 and the car was soon sent for scrap. But luckily it was saved and was then seen at the railroad pageant at the 1939-1940 San Francisco World's Fair. Then in 1969, it was donated to the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society and was then put on display at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is seen today. Also, it is the oldest surviving passenger car built by the Carter brothers. Also, it can be seen here on display at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is today.
What you see right behind me is Virginia and Truckee 16.
Virginia and Truckee 16 was built by Detroit Car Company in Detroit, Michigan in 1874 and is a combine baggage and coach car. This car traveled on passenger trains on the Virginia and Truckee Railroad for many years. It features elegant interior ash, oak, and black walnut woodwork. It was used on winter mixed passenger train and freight trains on the railroad. In 1938, the car was retired. It was sold that year to the Eastern Railroad's President Conference and appeared in the spectacular pageant Railroads on Parade at the 1939-1940 New York World's Fair. Then, in 1940, it was acquired by the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society's Pacific Coast chapter. Through the years, it was included in several railroad celebrations, such as the Chicago Railroad Fair of 1948-1949. In 1969, it was presented to the state of California, where it joined the collection at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California. Restoration work on the car was so extensive as the car suffered from major structural damages and dry rot. The car was carefully restored and was soon put inside the museum. Today it is on display at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is on display today.
What you see right behind me, Central Pacific 1.
Central Pacific One was built by Richard Norris and Son in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1863 and is the 1040th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 440 American type steam locomotive. Also, the locomotive is named Government Stanford. This was the first locomotive to be owned by the Central Pacific Railroad. It was disassembled and shipped in crates around Cape Horn on the Herald of the Morning. It arrived in Sacramento on October 6, 1863. Once it was fully reassembled, it was named in honor of the railroad's president, who was also governor of the state, Leland Stanford. The locomotive hauled the first excursion train and the first revenue freight train on March 25, 1864. It pulled the first passenger train on April 15, 1864. It operated on the Central Pacific while the Transcontinental Railroad was being constructed. In 1873, it was put into switcher service and used as a fire engine in the Sacramento area. It was later renumbered 212. In 1895, it was retired. Then, in 1899, it was donated to Stanford University in Palo Alto, California. It was presented to Jane Lathrop Stanford, who was Leland's widow, and donated it to the university. In 1963, it was loaned to the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, where it is seen on display today.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed learning about trains with me today. Matthew Lap Train Guy. Also, I hope to see you all again real soon. And if you didn't subscribe to my channel yet, the subscribe button is just down below the video stream. And if you didn't give the Facebook page a like yet, here's where you'll want to go. And if you didn't give the Instagram page a follow yet, here's where you'll want to go as well. Also, be sure to get your merch at teesprings.com. The link is in the description box below, along with the Facebook and Instagram pages. And as always, remember to subscribe to the Train Guy. So this is Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy, signing out. Until next time, all aboard.